The order of battle. East African Campaign shows the ground forces available to both sides in East Africa on the date that the Italians declared war on Britain and France, the 10th of June 1940. An update is also provided for the British and Commonwealth forces involved in the 1941 offensive. Italian forces, the 10th of June 1940. Commander-in-Chief, Amadeo, Duke of Aosta. Northern Sector Commander, Lieutenant General Luigi Frisci. 3rd Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Saverio Maraventano. 11th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 23rd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 30th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 70th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 4th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Livia Bonli. 14th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 25th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 27th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 29th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 5th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Brigade General Angelo Bergonzi. 97th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 105th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 106th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 6th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Lieutenant Colonel Agostino Magrini. 19th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 24th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 31st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 34th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 8th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Antonio Rizzo. 101st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 102nd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 12th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Ugo Tabellini. 35th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 36th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 43rd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 16th Tennessee Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Manlio Manetti. 22nd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 23rd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 47th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 53rd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 19th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Enrico Durante. 21st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 65th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 72nd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 86th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 21st Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Ignazio Angelini. 77th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 78th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 79th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 80th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 22nd Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Adriano Torelli. 3rd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 67th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 68th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 69th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 81st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 41st Colonial Infantry Brigade, Brigade General Ugo Fongoli. 98th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 99th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 131st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 132nd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 42nd Colonial Infantry Brigade, 43rd Colonial Infantry Brigade, 116th Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 141st Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 151st Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 164th Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 166th Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 240th Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 731st Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 745th Blackshirt Infantry Battalion, Cohort 6 Colonial Infantry Battalions, 2 Colonial Cavalry Battalions, 2 Irregular Colonial Cavalry Battalions, 2 Garrison Commands, and 3 batteries of 77 28th Howitzers. Southern Sector Commander, General Pietro Gazzera. 1st Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Guido Pialorsi. 1st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 6th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 8th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 18th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 9th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Flaminio Origo. 2nd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 17th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 59th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 60th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 10th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Giuseppe Closer, 28th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 55th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 181st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 187th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 18th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Bartolomeo Minola, 16th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 61st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 182nd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 183rd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 23rd Colonial Infantry Brigade, 80th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 88th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 89th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 25th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Lieutenant Colonel Giorgio Rolandi, 7th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 28th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 54th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 85th Colonial Infantry Brigade, 86th Colonial Infantry Brigade, 1 Colonial Infantry Battalion, 4 Irregular Colonial Cavalry Battalions, 1 Colonial Cavalry Company, and 7 Irregular Colonial Cavalry Companies. Eastern Sector Commander, General Guglielmo Nassi, 40 Infantry Division, Hunters of Africa, General Giovanni Vada, 210th Infantry Regiment, 211th Infantry Regiment, 40th Artillery Regiment, 40th Mortar Battalion, 18th Colonial Mixed Engineers Battalion, 40th Anti-Tank Company, 40th Medical Services Unit, 40th Supply Services Unit, 65 Infantry Division, Grenadiers of Savoy, General Amadeo Liberati, 10th Grenadiers Regiment, 2 battalions of Grenadiers and the Uorkamba Battalion of Mountain Infantry, 11th Grenadiers Regiment, 2 battalions of Grenadiers and 1 battalion of highly mobile Infantry, 11th Blackshirts of Africa Regiment, Legion, 3 battalions, cohorts of Blackshirts of Africa, 60th Artillery Regiment, 65th Mortar Battalion, Savoy Grenadiers Machine Gun Battalion, Negeli Colonial Cavalry Battalion, 65th Engineers Battalion, 65th Anti-Tank Company, 65th Medical Services Unit, 65th Supply Services Unit, 2nd Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Orlando Lorenzini, 4th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 5th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 9th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 10th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 7th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Tibet Ciarine, 13th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 15th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 45th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 11th Colonial Infantry Brigade, Colonel Francesco Prina, 51st Colonial Infantry Battalion, 52nd Colonial Infantry Battalion, 56th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 13th Colonial Infantry Brigade, General Cesare Nam, 20th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 39th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 48th Colonial Infantry Battalion, 14th Colonial Infantry Brigade, 15th Colonial Infantry Brigade, 17th Colonial Infantry Brigade, 70th Colonial Infantry Brigade, 1st Light Tank Company, 2nd Light Tank Company, 321st Medium Tank Company, 322nd Medium Tank Company, Armored Car Company, 4 Colonial Infantry Battalions, 7 Colonial Cavalry Battalions, 18 Irregular Colonial Cavalry Battalions, 2 batteries of 77 28th Howitzers, 4 batteries of 105 28th Howitzers, and 1 battery of 149 28th Howitzers. Juba Sector Commander, Lieutenant General Carlo Di Simone, 20th Colonial Infantry Brigade, 91st Colonial Infantry Brigade, 92nd Colonial Infantry Brigade, 7 Colonial Infantry Battalions and 2 Irregular Colonial Cavalry Battalions. British and Commonwealth Forces, the 10th of June 1940. Commander-in-Chief, General Archibald Wavell, Cairo Northern Front. The Sudan Commander, Major General William Platt, 1st Battalion Worcestershire Regiment, 1st Battalion Essex Regiment, 2nd Battalion West Yorkshire Regiment, 6 machine gun companies of the Sudan Defence Force. Southern Front, Kenya GOC East Africa Force, Major General D.P. Dickinson, Southern Brigade, 1st Brigade King's African Rifles, Brigadier Charles Christopher Falks, Northern Brigade, 2nd Brigade Car Brigadier Colin Frederick Blackton, East African Reconnaissance Regiment, later named East African Armoured Car Regiment, 22nd Mountain Battery. British Somaliland Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Reginald Chater, to the 11th of August 1940. Major General Reid Godwin Austen, from the 11th of August to the 17th of August, Somaliland Camel Corps, 1st Battalion Northern Rhodesian Regiment, 2nd Battalion King's African Rifles, 3rd Battalion 15th Punjab Regiment, 1st Battalion 2nd Punjab Regiment, 2nd Battalion The Black Watch, 1st East African Light Battery. British and Commonwealth forces during the 1941 offensive. Commander-in-Chief, General Archibald Wavell, Northern Front. Eritrea Commander, Lieutenant General William Platt, Corps Artillery and Armour B Squadron, 4th Royal Tank Regiment, 68 Medium Regiment. Royal Artillery Jammu and Kashmir Mountain Battery, Indian Army Battery, Sudan Horse. Sudan Defence Force P Battery, Royal Horse Artillery 41 Light Anti-Aircraft Battery, a Royal Artillery Corps Infantry Reserve, 2 Motor Machine Gun Companies, Sudan Defence Force No. 51 Commando, 4th Indian Infantry Division, Major General Noel Beresford Peace, the Central India Horse, the Divisional Reconnaissance Regiment, 5th Indian Infantry Brigade. Brigadier Wilfred Lewis Lloyd, 1st Battalion Royal Fusiliers, 3rd Battalion 1st Punjab Regiment, 4th Battalion 6th Rajputana Rifles, 7th Indian Infantry Brigade. Brigadier Harold Rawdon Briggs, 1st Battalion Royal Sussex Regiment, 4th Battalion 16th Punjab Regiment, 4th Battalion 11th Sikh Regiment, 11th Indian Infantry Brigade. Brigadier Reginald Savory, 2nd Battalion the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders, 1st Battalion 6th Rajputana Rifles, 4th Battalion 7th Rajput Regiment, 3rd Battalion 14th Punjab Regiment, 2nd Battalion 5th Maratha Light Infantry Gazelle Force. Colonel Frank Messervy, 1st Duke of York's Own Skinner's Horse, 4th Battalion 11th Sikh Regiment, 3 Motor Machine Gun Companies of the Sudan Defence Force, 390th Field Battery of 144 Field Regiment Royal Artillery. Brigadier William H.B. Mearless, 1 Field Regiment RA 11 80th Field Battery RA 52 98th Field Battery RA 25 Field Regiment RA 31 Field Regiment RA Engineers 4 Field Company King George V's Own Bengal Sappers and Miners, i.e. 12 Field Company Queen Victoria's Own Madras Sappers and Miners, i.e. 18 Field Company Royal Bombay Sappers and Miners, i.e. 11 Field Park Company Queen Victoria's Own Madras Sappers and Miners, i.e. 5th Indian Infantry Division, Major General Lewis Heath, 1st Duke of York's Own Skinner's Horse, 9th Indian Infantry Brigade. Brigadier Moseley Main, Brigadier Frank Messervy, Brigadier Bernard Fletcher, 2nd Battalion West Yorkshire Regiment, 3rd Battalion 5th Maratha Light Infantry, 3rd Royal Battalion 12th Frontier Force Regiment, 3 Motor Machine Gun Companies of the Sudan Defence Force, 10th Indian Infantry Brigade. Brigadier William Bill Slim, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Fletcher, Brigadier Thomas Pete Rees, 1st Battalion the Essex Regiment, 2nd Battalion Highland Light Infantry, 4th Battalion 10th Balloch Regiment, 3rd Battalion 18th Royal Garhwal Rifles, 29th Indian Infantry Brigade. Brigadier John Charles Oakes Marriott, 1st Battalion the Worcestershire Regiment, 3rd Battalion 2nd Punjab Regiment, 6th Royal Battalion 13th Frontier Force Rifles Royal Artillery. Brigadier Claude Valentin 4 Field Regiment Ra 28 Field Regiment Ra 144 Field Regiment Ra Engineers 2 Field Company King George V Zone Bengal, Sappers and Miners, i.e. 20 Field Company Royal Bombay Sappers and Miners, i.e. 21 Field Company Royal Bombay Sappers and Miners, i.e. 44 Field Park Company Queen Victoria's Own Madras Sappers and Miners, i.e. Briggs Force Brigadier Harold Rawdon Briggs 1st Battalion Royal Sussex Regiment 4th Battalion 16th Punjab Regiment Brigade of the East, Colonel Montclar 1 Bataillon de Legion Étranger Battalion de Marche 33 ECIE du 1 Bataillon D, Infantry de Marine 1 Escadron de Spahis, Marrakeins 1 Group d'Artillerie Colonial 1 Motor Machine Gun Company of the Sudan Defence Force 1 Battery from 25th Field Regiment, Royal Artillery 7th Field Company King George V Zone Bengal Sappers and Miners, i.e. Gideon Force Sudan Defence Force Frontier Battalion 2nd Ethiopian Battalion. Mission 101 Many operational centers, small groups of officers and NCOs operating in enemy territory providing training and arms to Ethiopian Patriot forces loyal to Emperor Haile Selassie I and coordinating their operations. Southern Front, Kenya Commander, Lieutenant General Alan Cunningham Corps Troops 1 East African Armoured Car Regiment 1st South African Light Tank Company 1st South African Medium Brigade 53rd East African Light Battery 4th Rhodesian Anti-Tank Battery South African 1st Division, Major General George Brink, 1st South African Infantry Brigade, Brigadier Dan Pienaar 1st Duke of Edinburgh's Own Rifles 1st Royal Natal Carabiniers 1st Transvaal Scottish 3rd South African Armoured Car Company 4th Field Brigade South African Artillery 1st Field Company, South African Engineers 2nd South African Infantry Brigade, Brigadier FLA Buchanan 1st Natal Mounted Rifles 1st Field Force Battalion 2nd Field Force Battalion 2nd South African Armoured Car Company 12th Field Company, South African Engineers 5th South African Infantry Brigade, Brigadier Bertram Frank Armstrong 1st South African Irish 2nd Regiment Botha 3rd, Transvaal Scottish 1st South African Armoured Car Company 5th Field Company, South African Engineers 1 Platoon 1/3 King's African Rifles Divisional Artillery, 3rd Field Brigade South African Artillery 6th Anti-Aircraft Battery, South African Artillery 3rd Anti-Tank Battery, South African Artillery 11th African Division, Major General H. E. Durrah, Wetherell 21st Brigade, Brigadier Alan McDougall Ritchie 1/2 the King's African Rifles 1st the Northern Rhodesia Regiment 1/4 the King's African Rifles 53rd Field Company, West African Engineers 26th Brigade, Brigadier William Alfred Dymoline 2, 2nd King's African Rifles 4, 4th King's African Rifles 3, 6th King's African Rifles 23rd Brigade, Brigadier Gerald Smallwood 1st the Nigeria Regiment 2nd the Nigeria Regiment 3rd the Nigeria Regiment 52 Light Battery West African Artillery 51 Field Company, West African Engineers 1st East African Armoured Car Regiment 1 Platoon 1/3 King's African Rifles Divisional Artillery 7th Field Brigade South African Artillery 6th Anti-Aircraft Battery, South African Artillery 1st Anti-Tank Battery, South African Artillery Engineers 16 Field Company, South African Engineers 12th African Division, Major General Reed Godwin Austin 22nd Brigade, Brigadier Charles Christopher Fawkes until 3 March. Then Lieutenant Colonel Colin Frederick Blackton 1/1 the King's African Rifles 1/6 the King's African Rifles 5th the King's African Rifles 22, Mountain Battery Indian Artillery 54 Field Company, East African Engineers 25th Brigade, Brigadier W. 0-2, 3rd King's African Rifles 2, 4th King's African Rifles 27 Mountain Battery, Indian Artillery Detachment Somaliland, Camel Corps Armored Cars 24th Brigade, Brigadier Coughlin Edward Melville Richards 1st Gold Coast Regiment, 2nd Gold Coast Regiment, 3rd Gold Coast Regiment, 51 Light Battery West African Artillery, 52nd Gold Coast Field Company, West African Engineers, 1st East African Armored Car Regiment, 1 company less 1 platoon, 1/3 King's African Rifles Divisional Artillery, 1st Field Battery, South African Artillery, 6th Anti-Aircraft Battery, South African Artillery, 2nd Anti-Tank Battery, South African Artillery Engineers, 3rd South African Field Company, British Somaliland Commander, Brigadier Arthur Reginald Chater 1st Battalion 2nd Punjab Regiment, 3rd Battalion 15th Punjab Regiment Somaliland, Camel Corps.